of the year. Look in Mark chapter 17. Now, I've been doing a series on the character of Jesus. And last time we got together I did it on the faith of Jesus. Part 1. And so today is part 2. And I'm Mark chapter 17, or Matthew 17, I'm sorry. See, just testing you. Man, crowd gets ugly, I tell you. Matthew 17, verse 14. When they came, and this is where we left off. When they came to the crowd, a man approached Jesus and knelt before him. "Lord, have mercy on my son," he said. "He has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire or into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him." "O unbelieving and perverse generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the boy, and he was healed from that moment. Then the disciples came to Jesus in private and asked, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" He replied, "Because you have so little faith." I tell you the truth, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, "Move from here to there," and it will move. Yeah. Nothing will be impossible for you. Jesus' expectation here, he said, "Guys, you're perverse." Oh, this is intense. It's challenging to look at where Jesus is thinking. And in our minds, we don't expect people to have this kind of faith. We just accept it. Jesus does not. And I think for us, we got to understand the disciples were going to take the movement to another level after Jesus was gone. He expected them to do the impossible. Yeah. And God does the same for us. Right. He says it's perverse. That means obstinate, wicked, or corrupt. Now, if you're one of the apostles, you got to be thinking, you mean because I didn't drive out a demon? I mean, that's what I would be thinking. I'm corrupt. And Jesus saying, that's how I feel. That's reality to me. He's saying, what's the matter with you? How long will I put up with you? Bring the boy to me. You can sense his frustration on these guys. He had an expectation. And the reason being is that he couldn't work miracles through them. Can God work miracles through us? Or are we the obstacle to God changing this world?
Come on, bro.
He says, you have so little faith. It's challenging.
Yeah.
Do we hinder God? Could we do more if we weren't so obstinate?
Come on, bro.
Jesus says, you can move mountains. People are not getting healed because of you.
Wow.
Isn't that challenging?
Yeah.
We have the answers to life, right?
Yes.
Do you believe that? Is that your faith? Do you believe that this is the answer to anything? That's what Jesus is saying. Or are you obstinate? You're a refusal to believe. Problem is we trust in ourselves too much versus trusting in Jesus. In John 14, you don't have to turn there. It says, Jesus says, have faith in me. Not faith in yourself. Not faith in the economy. Not faith in your friends. Not faith in your minister. Have faith in me. In 1938, there was a radio broadcast that came up. It was called The War of the Worlds. You guys heard about that? Orson Welles was doing that, and it was a story by H.G. Wells, and it was made into movies in the 50s. It came out again with Tom Cruise, right? But it was a broadcast in 1938. It was the Halloween episode.
Whoa.
Okay? And in the beginning of the broadcast, they announced this is just, a broadcast, and they explained it. But a lot of people tuned in late. Now, back then, you didn't have TVs. That's what you did. You sat around and listened to great things on the radio. And it just so happened that a lot of people didn't turn it on until late. And they said, this is not true. Hey, this is, a story. In the first 2/3 of the broadcast, 60 minutes of the broadcast, they were presented as a series of simulated news bulletins. And there were no commercials. Everybody thought it was the real deal. People were freaking out to the point of committing suicide. People jumping out of windows. They were so scared. How does that happen? They had faith that it was happening. They believed it. Power of faith. Hitler was able to get a whole nation to buy into what he believed in. They were the superior race. The extermination of the Jews. And they bought into it. He got them to believe. And see, we got to see the power of faith. What can be done, good or evil? And God says, look at what you can do. If your faith is there. Satan knows how to take us out. He knows what seeds to plant in your brain to get you to stop. Look in Mark chapter 6. There's only 2 times in the Bible that it talks about Jesus being amazed. And both had to do with faith.
Come on, bro.
Chapter 6, verse 1.
Let's go, bro.
Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things, they asked. What's this wisdom that has been given him, that he even does miracles? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, only in his hometown among the relatives and in his own house is a prophet without honor. He could not do any miracles there, except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. And he was amazed at their lack of faith. Mercy! He couldn't do miracles. And he was amazed. Here you got Jesus going to his hometown. And it actually lists his physical half-brothers and sisters. So why would they take offense at him? Isn't this the carpenter? Where did he get all this stuff? How did he do this? And there's something about familiarity people have a hard time with. I know this guy. You're not talking about the same dude, are you? He did what? Nah. And see, for us, we got to realize the battle is in our mind. Our faith can be taken away. We can begin to doubt, and it stops God from working. Now, if I told my high school buddies that I was an evangelist,
they'd be like, whoa.
Yeah, that's about it. They wouldn't believe it. Even college. Henry Ford said, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. And it depends on what goes on in the mind. The battle is in the mind. And you've heard me say that many times. Are you a negative person? Are you whiny? Are you down, discouraged? Or are you fired up, positive, and faithful? What defines you?
Come on.
We can't do it. It's impossible. It's too hard. It's too much. Or, why can't we do it? What's the focus on? The obstacles or on Jesus? This used to be me. When they studied the Bible with me, they said, dude, you're in rough shape. You are a negative, angry young man. That was me. My attitude towards life was, don't expect anything to work. That's serious. I had so many disappointments that was my attitude. Don't expect anything to work, because then I won't be let down. And if it does, hey, all the better. That was my mindset. And I had a very negative lifestyle. Some people take it further than that. They go extreme and they panic. We're all going to die. It's over. You know, you got these people in the world, War of the Worlds, man. They're committing suicide. They're like Eeyore. Oh no. It's never going to work. Okay, if we have to. And see, for us, we got to hate that attitude. It pulls everybody down. You know, are you the kind of person that comes into fellowship and you walk around and everybody kind of moves away from you? It's like you go here and everybody's moving and moving. Are they drawn to you? Nobody wants to be around negative, whiny people. Nothing fun about that. We need to hate it, because Jesus hated it. He said it's perverse. In Galatians 5, you don't have to turn there, verse 19, it has a list of sins. Chapter 5, verse 19. Maybe you're familiar with that. One of the sins in there is called dissension. That's a person that basically has a strong disagreement with people. They create disunity through their character. And for us, is that us? Is something presented and we tear it down right away? And you remember in the Old Testament with Caleb and Joshua, bringing the 12 guys went out and spied out the land. And everybody said, we can't do it, they're too big, it's too tough. And Caleb said, we can certainly do this. Which would you have been? Which would I have been? Romans 14:23 says, everything that does not come from faith is sin. Wow! There you got it. It's sinful. Why? Because you're saying you don't trust God. I don't trust Him. I know what it says in the Bible, but I don't believe it. Well, God's not going to be able to work through you. Revelation 21, verse 8, it has the word unbelieving in the same line as a murderer. And it says both are going to be thrown into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. Wow! Yeah. Faithlessness is sin. We got to hate it. Now imagine if Barb and I were like that. All right? This church. What are we going to do with these people? What a mess. God, why did you bring these people to me? Man, how long, Lord? I can't work with these people. Will they never change? Got to waste my time here. Or maybe I can say that about myself. I am such a mess. God, what am I going to do? What if Barb and I got hit by a bus? Bam! And it's up to you. And it's up to you. What would this church do with your faith, where you're at right now? And see, our faith has a ripple effect, what we do. Jesus says it's perverse if we think that way. And it's, quite frankly, it's a pet peeve of mine. I hate it. When I hear people like that, it drives me crazy, because I know it's doing damage to other people. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, and it has another list of sins. At the end of it, it says, having a form of godliness, but denying its power, have nothing to do with them. You cannot be faithless and powerful. Yeah. You just can't. You cannot be a man to be reckoned with if you're faithless, or a woman. Look in Psalm 101. Come on, bro. We're going to look at a man who was faithful. We're going to look at David. And I want you to notice his attitude and his spirit. Wasn't David awesome? Psalm 101, verse 1. I will sing of your love and justice. To you, O Lord, I will sing praise. I will be careful to lead a blameless life. When will you come to me? I will walk in my house with blameless hearts. I will set before my eyes no vile thing. Amen. The deeds of faithless men I hate. They will not cling to me. Men of perverse hearts shall be far from me. I will have nothing to do with evil. Now, does that sound familiar? Do you notice the swing here? The first part is, I want to be with God. God is awesome. I will sing. I will praise you. I will lead a blameless life. And I will set no vile thing before me. And what's he talking about? Issues of faith. The deeds of the faithless I hate. Wow. That's pretty amazing. They're not going to cling to me. He says it's perverse. Does that sound familiar? Jesus said the same thing. It's perverse. Look how he defines it. Vile, perverse, and evil. That was his attitude. Do you think David would have put up with faithless men if they went off to battle?
No way.
This guy, you can't fight today. You're faithless. Get out of here. Seriously, you're going to destroy the unity, and we're going to get destroyed. And see, we are in a battle. We got to be faithless. Now, somebody's faithless. Help them. Go in there and rescue that person. Look in 2 Corinthians chapter 10.
Come on, Jay.
2 Corinthians chapter 10. And once again, the battle is in the mind. You've heard me say that, right? Yeah. Verse 4. And Paul is trying to help the Corinthians overcome sin. They were in a lot of sin. And he says, listen, we got to deal with this. This is how we win. Verse 4, the weapons we fight with are not weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Wow. He says, you take captive every thought. You make sure you don't let your mind go. You get focused, because we are in a warfare. Mind is a powerful weapon. Make it obedient. The battle is won or lost in the mind. That's where your faith is at. That is faith. What do you believe? And you can do this. Now, once again, this was a huge issue for me. Okay? Mentally, I was kind of out there. And, of course, when they're studying the Bible with me, they challenged me on that. And I've shared this with you before, that they said I was mentally lazy. And I thought, I never thought about controlling the way I think. I just let my mind go. It would go off into the azure blue. And, I can remember, as a goldsmith, I have certain pliers that I use. And I can remember one time spending a good 3 to 5 minutes looking for the pliers, and it was in my hand. It's like, now I know I'm alone with this, right? I would walk into a room and not remember why I came in there. I know I'm the only one who does this. Bill Cosby had a thing like that. He says his brain is in his rear. Because he says, I walk in a room, I can't remember why I'm there, but when I sit down, I remember. Have you ever done that? Now I know. Or sometimes I'll go somewhere to do something, and I get 5 things done, I come back, but I didn't do the thing I went in there to do. And I got to get up and do it again. Hopefully I won't forget again. Praise God for Barb. Helps me out.
Bye, Barb.
handing me things, texting me things, trying to find ways to do it so I won't get angry, you know? Like she's not nagging or something. She's helping me out. I've shared that before. And then when you get older, now you think you got an excuse. I watched a movie one time. I got 3/4 of the way through and I said, I've seen this before. Have you ever done that? It's horrible. The great thing about getting older is you can read the same book over and over and over again. It's a great book. If you don't remember it, just read it again. Great movie, watch it again. The mind is a crazy thing. But we got to take captive every thought. You know, I used to blame it on my drug days when I was, teenager and all that. Can't do that anymore. Some of you are saying, I never took drugs. What's my excuse? Yeah, see? But it takes training. Have you ever done that? You've driven home, you pull in the parking lot, and you don't remember any of the drive. How did I get here? You take a shower in the morning, and then you're like, did I wash my hair? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. Barb's like, Jay, you can't remember where you live, but you can remember all the Packers on the '67 team that won the Super Bowl. Amazing! Amazing memories, right? We can do this. It's just quit being lazy. We got to mentally focus because that's the battle. If you're in a battle, you don't dwell on other things or else you get taken out.
Right. Yeah.
And we convince ourselves we can't do things. I can't be a Bible talk leader. I can't be a great Bible talk leader. I can't overcome this fear that I have. I can't forgive. I can't give up my bitterness. I can't be faithful. I can't bring people to Jesus. Versus I can do everything through Him who gives me strength. Okay, I think there's three main areas that causes us to lose our faith. The first thing is just being guilty. I'm going to do a whole sermon on guilt. But this is huge. People always feel guilty. And like I said before, guilt is not an emotion, it's a state of being. Either you're guilty or you're not. The judge says guilty, he doesn't care how you feel about it. You're guilty. Now, what we got to do is we got to say, hey, am I guilty? If you're not, then don't let Satan think you are. Because it stops you and robs you of your faith. And if you are guilty, deal with it. The Bible says, hey, repentance brings times of refreshing. And we can do that. And you can train yourself how to do that. Second thing is a victim mindset. A lot of us can go there. You think about how bad life is and how bad you have it. And how people hurt you. And it's just wrong. And you're suffering unnecessarily. And you deserve something. Well, this is what you do. You write down those things that you're feeling, and then when you pray about it, envision yourself before the cross and tell Jesus how bad you got it. Was Jesus a victim? Absolutely.
Yes.
He did nothing wrong, and he was tortured to death for it. Yeah, he's a victim. It's hard to complain to Jesus saying how bad you got it when you know he's on the cross there, suffering greatly. I think finally, fear. And I'm going to do a whole lesson on that too. All those. Fear. If your mind is focused on fear, you can't be powerful. On all these, you can't be faithful, you can't be powerful. It's a self-focus. What's going to happen to me?
Wow.
Versus, how can I change this situation for the good?
Come on, Jay.
Look in Luke chapter 7.
Come on, Jay. Come on, Jay.
We're going to look at the second area where Jesus was amazed. This is a lot more encouraging. Amen. I had to write something up. I was getting down there. Verse 1. Luke 7, verse 1. It says, when Jesus had finished saying all this in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. There a centurion's servant, whom his master valued highly, was sick and about to die. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him, "This man deserves to have you do this, because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue." So Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof." But you look at how did this happen? This guy's a centurion. He's over 100 people, right? Now, what does he do? I'm sure he's killed people in his life. And you got to understand, the Jews hated the Romans, and the Romans hated the Jews. Romans did not want to be in Israel. It was the stink hole of the whole Roman Empire. And the reason being is the Jews got special honors because of their faith. They couldn't knock this faith out, so they just let him go. And the Romans hated it. And here you got a guy that loves the Jews, built their synagogue. And he gets the Jewish elders to go to Jesus. That's just crazy. And they tell Jesus he deserves this. Wow. Anybody deserve anything from a Roman? I mean, the Jews were slaves to Rome. And you look at what must have been a part of this guy's character. They weren't supposed to even associate with him. And they're backing him up. That's just crazy. Well, how does this happen? Well, let's look at a few things with this centurion. First of all, he had great humility. He says to Jesus, "I don't deserve to have you in my house." Now, does that sound like a Roman centurion? No. I don't deserve to have you come. I'm not worthy of you. And then it says that he valued his servant. That's pretty crazy. A servant was a servant. But you could see the respect he had for a servant. And yet this man probably killed many people. He valued people. James 4:16 says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. He was a humble man. James 4:10 says, humble yourself before the Lord, and he will lift you up. This must have been an amazing guy. Prideful people don't trust God, they trust themselves. And then they fail. Because you can only do so much. When you're prideful, God can't do miracles through you. There's just no way. Because you go by your own power. And you are limited. I am limited. Okay? Second thing he did is he made Jesus Lord. It was lordship. He understood authority. And he's saying, you're God, I am not. I am not. That was his faith. He called Jesus Lord, which means master. A Roman centurion calling somebody else Lord than Caesar? That's not good. That's not, he'd get killed for this thing. Jesus got killed for it. Yet he says, you're the master. You have the authority and the power to do anything. I understand authority. Just say the word, it'll be done. Wow! And this guy was a pagan, a heathen, and yet he had this amazing faith. Is that how we respond to God? Just say the word God and it'll be done? How are our quiet times? I know what a person's faith, what their quiet times are like by looking at their faith. We should be different in 6 months than we are now. I know I've grown in the last 6 months. I know it. No doubt in my mind. And I've been doing this for 30 years. Perfection is awfully hard to come by. And if we walk with Jesus, so goes our faith. And where does faith come from? Hearing the message. Romans 10:17. Does your quiet times change your life every day? In 2 Corinthians 3:18, you don't have to turn there, it says we are transformed as we reflect or contemplate on God. All you have to do is think about God, and it will change you. That's what it says. You know, we have a lot of faithful people in this church. A lot of great examples. A lot of them. I think of Griselda. I don't know where she is. She got a lot of persecution, and she stood strong. Hey, that's a mark of a disciple. How do we handle persecution? If you're not doing well, talk to her, okay? I know Alyssa, Jadea, and Carla stood up to their bosses, each one of them, and said, I will not work on Sunday. And they all got fired. And God blessed them. It just shows priority. That's amazing stuff. And finally, Val. She's turning red already. Her husband left her. She took on the custody of her granddaughter. Then she lost her job. She was challenged by the church to move in to get help, and she did. She moved in. And now look at her, she's beaming. Did you see her at the party? No comment. She was beaming though. She had visitors there. It was awesome. Faithful. Are you a faithful person? Could I have put you on this list? Could I put myself on this list? You know, we have a special contribution coming up. And a lot of times you can tell a sense of a person by their faith. And some people are like, well, I just can't do it. Is that a faithful spirit? No. Or they're like, well, I don't believe in what we're doing. That's an issue of faith too. And it comes down to, what do you believe in? Sacrifice is always a challenge to our faith. And what we need to do is hear people saying, I'm going to go beyond you've asked or even imagined. Why? Because we love God and we love the kingdom. Somebody sacrificed for us. And Satan's going to put those thoughts in your head. Well, do we know this and that? You know? Had a great talk with Joe Chipetta the other day. And sometimes we need to have talks to get our faith in areas that are challenging. Satan's going to get in there with you. And if it's a challenge for you, talk to somebody. But you don't give grudgingly. That's unacceptable to God. Our faith will dictate what we do. In the 1930s, I seem to like that today, there's a man by the name of George Pulitz. He went to school at Stanford University, and it was during the Depression. Times were pretty tough. And he knew he had to get good grades so he could have the kind of fellowship that he wanted, to get the scholarships that he needed. And it was his final exam, and he came late. And he got the test, and there were 8 questions on the quiz. But there was 2 on the board. And the 2 on the board were a lot harder. And he worked on it, and he couldn't get it done. He went to the professor. He said, can you give me more time on the 2 on the board? And he said, yeah, I'll give you till tomorrow. And he worked on it, and he worked on it. And he was able to solve one of those questions, but the other, he just couldn't do it, and he was heartbroken. Because he knew that at best he'd have 90%, even if he didn't do great on the rest of it, or vice versa. He thought 90% is as good as I'm going to get. So he turned in his paper. A few hours later, he got a call from the professor. He says, George, You made mathematical history. I remember now that you came late. I forgot to explain to you the tests were the 8 on the paper. The 2 were for fun. They were unsolvable questions. You did an unsolvable question. So he got his fellowship. He got written in all sorts of journals around the world, and he became a professor right there for 45 years. Now, had he known that it was impossible, he probably wouldn't have done it. And a lot of times we talk ourselves into that it's impossible. You can't do it. That's what's so great about little children. They believe anything you tell them. Jump. They jump. They believe. But what's unfortunate is we teach them not to believe. And that's sad. That's why Jesus says you got to become like little children. Our faith stops God from working. We got to watch God do miracles in our life. Whoever said that you couldn't do exactly what you were planning to? Whoever said that you couldn't climb up to the sun to heights sublime? Who has advised you to check your pace, give up the struggle and lose the race, crawl off discouraged and hide your face? Nobody but you. You're the one who's done it all, deserted your castles and let them fall. Smother the spark of ambition's fire, shut off the current and cut the wire. How do you know until the die is cast? How do you know when the crowd goes past who will be the leader and who will be the last? How do you know? Life is not merely a game of chance, and you're not the victim of circumstance. Nothing's too hard for a man to do, providing, of course, he wishes to. Wishes it more than a miser's wealth, more than an invalid who longs for help, works for it, prays for it night and day, feels that no price is too great to pay. How do you know until you strive that way? How do you know? I'm going to close with a challenge. I want you to come up with an impossible dream. I want you to pray about it. I want you to write it down, and I want you to tell someone about it. And watch God do miracles in your life. Amen.